tonight's Game 3 make or break for the NBA Finals winner? Plus, the beef is squashed. Enjoy Chestnut in talks return to the Nathan's hot dog eating contest. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Front Office Sports Today from FOS Studios here in New York City. I'm Baker Machado.
And I'm Dan Roberts. I'm stepping in for Renee, who is on assignment in Pittsburgh, and she will join us on the show later. Thanks for joining us. We always chat the biggest stories at the intersection of sports, business, and culture, and today we have a big show ahead. Let's dive in with the shoot-around.
Yes, Dan, let's do it. Let's start in college basketball. They continue to take a page from the NBA as the NCAA says starting next season, coaches will be able to challenge at least one play per game. Challenges can include out-of-bounds calls, basket interference, or goaltending, and officials, Dan, can initiate video reviews in the final 2 minutes of the second half and in overtime as well. The NBA instituted this back in 2019. It looks like it's been successful for them, so it was only a matter of time before we saw it in college.
Yeah, I like it very much. Of course, it adds a little intrigue with choosing, your shot. When are you going to use your one? You get one. And of course, it adds a new level of nervousness of, did we go too early? You use it in the, early in the game or a third of the way through, and then in the final 5 minutes, oops, I would have challenged this, but I've already thrown my challenge. So I think it's great. Of course, for me, it also brings up this larger kind of trend of automation versus human versus coach's challenge in all the sports. For example, in tennis, this has become a hot topic. When can the players do a challenge? They look to their coach for a signal. And I think you'll see more of this kind of push and pull of how much the leagues and the organizations allow in terms of challenging the refs.
Two quick notes to say on this. You have to have at least one timeout to be able to call the challenge. And if you lose that challenge, you do not get one for the rest of the game. But if you win that challenge, you do get another one. The only question I have is, does this sort of delay or sort of make the game a little bit more excruciating at the final seconds of the game when you're having to review these
It definitely
calls?
does. And by the way, winning and getting an extra timeout is a huge swing.
Huge.
Not only have you won the challenge, you get an extra timeout. But look, these games can get really grind to a halty toward the end when it's just intentional foul, intentional foul, intentional foul.
All right, meanwhile, Shaq has agreed to pay victims of the now collapsed cryptocurrency exchange FTX about $1.8 million. This to settle claims that he and other celebrities had promoted FTX, which engaged in fraud. Now, the federal judge said that investors would also be able to replead their case against Tom Brady and other celebs as well.
So Shaq was only paid, ready for this? $750,000 for endorsing FTX. I say only, that's a pretty good chunk. But to be paid $750,000 and then in the end you have to pay out $1.8 million. Now again, also it's Shaq, $1.8 million, he can take it. But I think this is a very large amount. And by the way, we should mention Shaq, just one of many celebrities and athletes. Naomi Osaka, Shohei Ohtani, Tom Brady, Giselle, who endorsed FTX, which turned out to be a fraud. Also, my own opinion, no defense of them, but it's like, they're not liable for the fact that this company turned out to be a sham and a fraud. I don't think you can hold them accountable. But what Shaq did that in the end kind of bit him is he chose to settle first. The rest of the athletes and celebs held on, dragged it out, and most of the charges have been dropped. So he's going to end up having paid the most in settlement fines.
All right, meanwhile, Jason Kidd, Chris Finch, and Ime Udoka will all return to their respected sidelines next season. This after their teams rejected the Knicks' request to speak with their head coaches about their open vacancy. This all according to Shams. Former Villanova coach Jay Wright also said he isn't interested in replacing former coach Tom Thibodeau either. So who do the Knicks hire here?
Tough. I know Ben Horney wants Jeff Van Gundy. There's a chance that they just go with the former assistant. Now, my biggest question here is, so they fired Tibbs without a plan? Was there no plan? It's like you leave your current job, you don't have your next job lined up. You would have thought that they had their eye on someone. Maybe that was Jason Kidd. And maybe it all still works out in the end because reportedly they're still going to pursue Kidd.
All right, let's stay in the NBA. Just how important is tonight's Game 3 in Indianapolis? Well, teams that win Game 3 after being tied 1-1 are 32-8 in finals history to win the championship. And good news, Tyrese Halliburton's going to play in Game 3 after a lower leg injury. So let's dive into this more in our main event. And let's go to Indiana, where FOS reporter Colin Salao is covering the game. Colin, let's talk about what you're seeing around town. How is Indianapolis preparing for Game 3 of the NBA Finals?
Yeah, so, I'm not sure if you saw FOS's viral tweet yesterday, but they've already named the streets after their players, I think kind of similar to what the Knicks did. They're preparing decorations all around Gainbridge Fieldhouse. They have, an 8-foot Larry O'Brien trophy standing outside. We'll see if they actually win that one in this playoffs. They have, different huge just posters of the team all around Gainbridge Fieldhouse. You can really feel the vibe. I mean, even here, I'm actually with some of my cousins here in Indiana who live here, and they were telling me that it's just, there's a different level of buzz around the city when they talk about their friends. They didn't expect this from the Pacers, and they're all super excited. I told them, hey, there's shirts. He's like, please get me one. So there's a huge buzz here for sure.
Colin, you wrote a great story a couple weeks ago about how the basketball center of the country is kind of zooming in on Indiana right now, because it's not just the Pacers, it's the Fever. Mm-hmm. And while you're there in town, you'll be able to go to a Fever Liberty game next Saturday. That'll be fun. We'll talk to you about that. But if you return to that narrative right now, even though it's the NBA Finals, it's the ultimate, you would think the focus is on the Pacers. Are you also seeing a lot of people bringing up Caitlin and the Fever? Because right now it's both, right? And arguably, I think there are people who are still more excited about the current WNBA season, if they're already Fever fans, than they are about the NBA Finals.
Yeah, I mean, whenever you're here, you're just going to see Caitlin Clark jerseys. You're going to see Caitlin Clark's face all around the city, even amid, the Pacers run. I think they kind of loop them together. I don't think the Pacers, when you talk to people from the Pacers Sports and Entertainment organization, they don't separate the two sides. The players themselves support each one. The Halliburton's there for the Fever games. Caitlin Clark's there, and other Fever players are there for the Pacers game. So I think it's interesting because they're happy that they're both doing it together at the same time. There's no separation.
Colin, let's talk ratings. Obviously, game one was electric, but the ratings have sort of shown that the audiences are not as interested in two Middle America teams, down 20% according to some reports out there. How concerned do you think the NBA is that this is just not rating well so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's twofold, right? There's one side of it where it's like, hey, they signed their 11-year, $77 billion deal. So sure, ratings go down. We have this. But ultimately, everyone is still going to look at that as the future goes along. And you're going to compare that with other leagues like the NFL, and the NHL, even though they're down in the US, they're up in Canada. But when you're looking at these two teams, is this going to continue? Adam Silver was talking about how he wants to build stars and that winning the finals will build these stars. But if people aren't watching, which is really the case right now, is that going to be able to continue as this deal kind of comes along? So I think there is excitement, but especially because Oklahoma City, again, it looks like they're going to, kind of dominate this series after game two. It's going to be interesting to see how the next games fare ratings-wise.
And Colin, when we talk about ratings, and I agree with you, I don't think the NBA is sweating it too much. $77 billion deal, they'll be okay. But we love playing the parlor game of the face of the league. And most people would say, look, LeBron James is still the most famous person in the NBA right now who's currently playing. Hard to see Tyrese Halliburton being the face of the NBA, but he has kind of been the breakout star along with SGA of this finals, or at least of this playoff run. What do you make of where things stand with the biggest stars who will emerge from this finals? I mean, is this going to be really big for raising the profile of a Tyrese Halliburton, of an SGA?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately it always does happen. Like, Adam Silver does have a case. Like, Jokic was not a huge star, and then he wins the finals, right? And then it's like, oh yeah, we still care about Jokic. But to compare him to a LeBron is very different still, right? And a lot of that is LeBron's longevity, LeBron's willingness to be in the spotlight. I think Halliburton has that, but you kind of have to have a huge, mix of all of these things and success and be the number one player and have the charisma. Which LeBron had, which Steph had, which we don't really know if Tyrese and SGA have. And again, like we've talked about a million times, that might be a factor of how the NBA has built its systems, this CBA. So we'll see. I think the face of the league conversation, as much as it's hammered, is important for the league. But right now, this is where we are.
Colin, 15 seconds. Will we see more of the finals logos on the court today after fan outcry over the weekend?
I think there's going to be more digital stuff. They might try something new. Maybe we'll try something new, but I'm sure they'll try something.
All the more reason to watch and find out. Our Colin Salao for us in Indiana covering the game for us. Colin, thank you so much. And coming up next, everyone, on Front Office Sports Today, we're going to tell you how some cities are preparing for the Club World Cup, which is getting started in just a few weeks. That's coming up next. Don't go anywhere. Hi, Hi, friends. Welcome back to Front Office Sports Today. I'm Baker Machado, and cities all over the country are preparing for the FIFA Club World Cup, and that includes cities like Atlanta. And earlier, Renee and I got the chance to speak with Tim Zulawski, who is the president of AMB Sports and Entertainment, about how that city is preparing. Take a look.
And welcome back in our Front Office Sports Today alongside Baker. I'm Renee, and we have a great guest in studio joining us now, the president of AMB Sports and Entertainment, Tim Zulawski. So happy to have you here, Tim, because you're booked and busy right now, and glad you're able to carve out time around World Cup prep, Club World Cup prep, and all the exciting concerts and things to join us in studio.
It's my absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So let's dive right in. Obviously, one of the bigger items on the upcoming schedule, looking ahead to 2026, the 23rd edition of the FIFA World Cup. And as you're working hard in Atlanta to make sure to prepare, what has preparation been like for you guys in preparing for the largest edition of the tournament to come to your city?
Yeah, so I don't think people realize how long the prep window is for this. So you're talking actually signing documents with FIFA preceding the building of Mercedes-Benz Stadium, right? So we opened in 2017. We've made hundreds of millions of dollars of modifications to the stadium already, literally brought in millions and millions of people every year. And in the background, you're prepping for the global game to come to the United States and to come to Atlanta. So we're in that last 12 months. And so, from the blocking and tackling, if you will, building permits, road permits, different groups that have been assigned tasks, that's all in a good place. So now you got to finish the job. That's really what this next 12 months is about.
Yeah, so Renee mentioned the semifinal stages. So we're going to see 6 Club World Cup games coming up here in just the next few weeks, and then 8 World Cup games in 2026. How do you sort of feel like Atlanta's doing things differently than the other cities that are also partaking in Club World Cup action as well?
Well, I don't know. We focus on doing things different than the other cities. We focus on doing what Atlanta's best at, which is welcoming people. Our motto of the stadium is welcome home. You've all obviously heard the phrase Southern hospitality.
Oh, yeah.
So we will open the doors to the state of Georgia and the city of Atlanta, and specifically Mercedes-Benz Stadium, to bring, to invite in the world. We have, when it looks at our city, we have an airport that you can get to 80% of the U.S. consuming public within 2 hours. So what probably is unique to us, but maybe say in New York or Dallas in particular, is people are going to hunker in your city and in your state. And so now, how are you going to ingratiate those hundreds of thousands of new temporary residents that speak multiple languages, but you want them to have the time of their lives? And so we're excited to bring the world to our doorstep, as I said, and we'll be ready.
Yeah, and what's incredible is this is the largest slate, 48 teams for the World Cup, and obviously the inaugural Club World Cup. So a lot of excitement around the matches. But you, as we were talking before the show began, are no stranger to planning, whether it's concerts, whether it's college football, such a wide variety of events. But I'm curious, how does the branding and signage work event to event, especially with something like FIFA, where they are very particular about what can and cannot be seen?
Yeah, so there's, on most events that we host, the founding partners of our stadium, their advertising stays exposed. We have limited what we refer to as special events. FIFA is one of them, where we go to what's called a clean venue. So now the super unique piece of the hosting the World Cup is the naming rights actually has to come off the venue. So instead of it calling Mercedes-Benz Stadium, it'll be Atlanta Stadium. And
interesting.
Yeah.
Why is
heard that.
Why is
it? It gets all into the commercial rights that are associated with the different, federations, and that's part of the, when you go to bid for an event, they have their like hosting an artist. There's a rider, right? Here's in essence the equivalent of their rider, and if you want to host them, this is what you need to be willing to do. And so, obviously they have a different automotive partner than we do. And but we had remember we were working on this before we did build the stadium. Yeah. So we were covered off, if you will. So Mercedes is Mercedes-Benz are great partners and know what's coming and really know that this is great for the United States and obviously is great for Georgia and for Atlanta. And so they, as well as we, were not going to stand in the way of the opportunity to host the World Cup.
One other thing a lot of people are familiar with at Mercedes-Benz Stadium is concessions. They're affordable.
Sure.
Yeah.
How is that going to work with this too? Are you going to sort of keep some of the same prices on a lot of things, or like the naming of the stadium, it's going to be different also?
So there's a certain line where we draw, and comes to our food and beverage program. So in the case of World Cup or any event that is hosted at Mercedes-Benz Stadium from this day and or forward, they're the same pricing. And we call it street pricing fanfare. Okay, so you will literally be able to get hundreds of combinations for under $30. So a couple beers, fries, hot dog, Coca-Cola. Family of 4 can feed and eat and enjoy. And that's part of the experience that we offer and will always offer. So whether we're hosting World Cup, Super Bowl, Atlanta Falcons, Atlanta United, it doesn't matter. Beyonce, she'll be here later in July. You can have that same experience. If you want the lobster roll, it's there as well.
Which who doesn't?
So I mean, we have very high-end food available to the fan, but the point is it's choice. And they get to choose the food that they want to have for the experience they want to have.
Options are key. Options are key. But with something like the World Cup or even the Club World Cup, it's a whole different audience. It's a lot of tailgating. You have people, as you mentioned, traveling into Atlanta from all over the world. And I always tell people as a former soccer player, like, soccer fans in the world are different. How are you guys preparing in terms of like parking and the logistics for really being able to accommodate so many people in Atlanta?
So the infrastructure of Atlanta is absolutely awesome. You have over 7,000 parking spaces surrounding the stadium, but then you also have 2 mass transit stops within a quarter-mile walk, 3 within 1 mile. And so, you know, whatever way people choose, and by the way, you got about 16,000 hotel rooms within just under a mile and a half. Now, I will, caution, you got a lot of bodies. Right, so plan ahead. Make sure you go to FIFA's app. Make sure you read the note before you goes, and all the information that will be readily available to people as we try to make it the smoothest possible experience for you. Additionally, though, you also have almost $7 billion of private money being spent around the stadium. Centennial Yards, South Downtown. We're making modifications to the Mercedes-Benz Stadium as well. The Congress Center is looking at additional developments. Some will be ready for World Cup or pre-World Cup. Some will be post. But the point of it is the whole city center is going to have a whole new offering for those guests coming.
So many things to look forward to, and an exciting time, not just for soccer, but just for sports in general, especially with all that you're hosting. So Tim, thank you so much for joining us in studio to weigh in on all the great things you guys are doing, and especially knowing that your work with A&B Sports and Entertainment is helping provide an incredible experience for those in attendance.
And our thanks to Tim Zulawski for joining us in studio. And coming up next, we're traveling to Pittsburgh. Renee is on the ground with the Steelers right after this. Welcome back, guys, to Front Office Sports Today with our editor-in-chief, Dan Roberts. I'm Baker Machado, and on the heels of Aaron Rodgers signing with Pittsburgh, our Renee Washington is in the Steel City with Dan Rooney of the Steelers ownership group. So, Renee, what's going on?
And thank you, Baker. I'm excited to be joined by Dan Rooney, who is the Director of Business Development with the Steelers, working on development and strategy. And Dan, an exciting time right now with the season getting closer, second day of minicamp. And you guys just had the recent news with the Aaron Rodgers deal, that 1 year, $13.65 million deal. Of that, $5.85 million of incentives for postseason implications. How important do you think the timing is to have an addition like Aaron Rodgers to get you guys back to that legacy of winning championships and postseason games?
Yeah, the importance of the quarterback position is well documented, and getting a guy like Aaron Rodgers, one of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history, on the field here in Pittsburgh is really exciting for our organization and for our fan base. So we're pumped up.
And I love that while we've been here, we've had a chance to learn more about the Steel Curtain, the history of Pittsburgh football, the 6 Super Bowl titles, top across the history of the NFL with the Patriots of that. How important is it when you have DK Metcalf, Aaron Rodgers, these additions, to be able to give them on the field and off the field opportunities to help grow the Steelers franchise and what fans can experience and enjoy?
Yeah, just exciting to continue to bring in, talent into the Steelers. So we are, ready to make a Super Bowl run every season. So every year's a new year, and training camp's right around the corner. So we're excited to get to Latrobe and take that step towards the 2025 season.
And when I looked this last year, the valuation for the franchise actually had a 15% increase from the previous season. It seems like there's so much you guys have been doing to be one of the top franchises, top 30 in the world of sports. When you look at how the global presence has grown, the international slate of having a game in Ireland, the first time ever the NFL has a game in Ireland and your first ever regular season game there, how encouraged are you by the direction of what you guys are talking about behind the scenes to not only grow in Pittsburgh, but across the world?
the game of American football continues to grow. You see the number of international games being played each season now, and the Steelers nation is truly global. It's not just here stateside. It's from Ireland to Mexico to Germany. We have fans across the world, and now that we're able to bring a regular season game to international waters, to Dublin, Ireland, a place where my family hails from, and we actually played a preseason game in 1997. Full circle moment for our franchise.
And you and your family have been such a big part of the history of the Pittsburgh Steelers, helping with the international presence, but also being able to host the NFL draft. It's been 80 years since you guys hosted the draft. It looked very different back then. How, when you look at the future of 2026 draft, much pressure maybe is there when you look at the last 2 seasons breaking attendance records of the draft to now continue to raise the bar in terms of attendance?
The draft's been an incredible event for the NFL. The number of people that show up that'll be here right outside of this stadium in 2026. And, we're just excited to celebrate the football history that sits here in Western Pennsylvania, not just with the Steelers, but all of the great players that have come out of Western PA. Over 20 Hall of Famers, were born and raised in Pittsburgh and in Western Pennsylvania. So we like to say football is Pittsburgh and Pittsburgh is football, and we're excited to celebrate that.
Yeah, the last 2 drafts, the number 1 and number 2 in attendance records for the NFL history, and I have a feeling that Pittsburgh is going to be really doing a lot to break that record. So exciting times for you guys in terms of the schedule, the draft coming up, but also, of course, on the field with all the great things. So Dan, thank you so much for taking time to join us here. And Baker, we're going to send it back to you and see now what's bubbling over at the FOS water cooler.
All right, thanks, Renee. Jaws returns, Dan. TMZ says Major League Eating and Joey Chestnut have been in talks for the legendary eater to return to the famed Nathan's 4th of July hot dog eating contest. This just after a year after he was banned from competing over a sponsorship deal with faux meat brand Impossible Foods. I mean, it would make sense. He's the GOAT of all eating. He has won the contest every year since 2015, and only the second time last year that he didn't compete, he's won it the last 17 years.
Right, and both sides here should want to come to terms because he belongs in Coney Island, right?
Yes.
Now, you remember last year after he was banned because of the Impossible Foods endorsement, they set up a separate Kobayashi versus Joey Chestnut.
Yep.
That was over in Vegas. Joey Chestnut won, so he's currently got the crown there. I mean, people associate the whole thing with Joey Chestnut. That's who you want to see there, for better or worse. Now, of course, on a side note, I'd like to know, where's the next generation of competitive eaters?
Yes.
Who is the heir to the Kobayashi and Joey Chestnut throne in competitive eating? But I hope that
feel like this is an
FOS
investigation we should be finding.
Big time. I'd also like to know how much money both sides are talking about here, because if you're Joey Chestnut, you should take as much money as you can get. That's probably why he saw it as more valuable to do the Impossible Foods endorsement than go do Coney Island. But the fans want him in New York.
By the way, he set his new world record last year when he ate 83 hot dogs in a non-Nathan's competition, which is just crazy to think.
How many could you eat?
2, if even that.
Our producer, John Shames, insists that he could do 30. I don't believe it.
We'll get that on camera.
I'm on the mic right now, and I so can.
He says he can do it.
I'll take on the challenge.
By the way, guys, coming up tomorrow on the show, racing legend Jeff Gordon joins us in studio to talk about his new Amazon documentary. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.